Our next speaker is coming to us from Bosch. The Bosch Group, as we all know, is a leading global supplier of technology and services. As a leading IT company, Bosch offers innovative solutions for smart homes, smart cities, connected mobility, and connected industry. It uses its expertise in sensor technology, software, and services, as well as its own IT cloud, to offer its customers connected cross-domain solutions for a single source. Please welcome Pawel Piekut. He will present us his talk, Innovation Enabling for Bosch eBikes, from private cloud through hybrid to the public cloud, our product migration journey. Pavel, you may start.
Thank you very much. So choosing the right environment that is cost-effective, secure, scalable is not easy matter. That's why the topic from private cloud through hybrid to the public cloud, our product migration journey. Yeah. So my name is Paweł, and I will present you this our journey from private cloud to public cloud that we did with our product, the pros, the cons, challenges that I noticed on each stage of this migration. Uh, just maybe a few words about my humble person, mainly working with Java, Kotlin, .NET, some also other technologies, enthusiast of problem solving by developing a software, loves IoT, cloud, financial, cryptocurrencies, bikes, motorbikes, and this kind of stuff. Currently building backend in the cloud for the Bosch e-bike system. So I think that I should start from explaining what we are working on and where actually is this software in e-bike used. Because normally when you see e-bike, you see a bunch of hardware, but we are IT company, as it was said already. So I will definitely focus on that software part. But by the way, I would just add maybe a few words about the Bosch itself. We are also, of course, we are technology leader, and our code drives millions of cars and e-bike, especially e-bikes, AIoT, smart home, factories, power tool, even washing machines. Our code is really everywhere. Yep, and so our e-bike ecosystem is very complex because we have devices on the bike that are talking to each other and then are talking to the mobile app that is called Flow app, and the Flow app is talking to the cloud. So this setup is only comparable with this setup that car manufacturers have. eBike Cloud is heart of this entire ecosystem. Cloud is used directly on or indirectly by many sites, like for example by factories for flashing firmware to devices, by manufacturers that are assembling bikes and configuring them. Also, of course, by authorized services that provide diagnostic and maintenance to the e-bikes later on. And at the end, of course, by the users. They can enrich wide range of features thanks of the cloud. It's like adjusting e-bikes settings to their needs. They can also record their activities and synchronize it with third-party apps. They can also protect their bikes thanks of the lock and unlock feature. It works like that only the owner of the account is able to lock and unlock entire mechanism, which makes e-bike less attractive to steal. And of course, user can download latest features even after purchasing e-bike. Of course, this e-bike cloud also provides a security layer for all of the devices and all of sites that are on the slide. To do that, we integrated external KMS provider. So as you see, this eBike Cloud is really crucial and of this entire ecosystem, and there is really no space for any downtimes here. So probably most of you from enterprise use private clouds. A few years ago, we started with our own private cloud. It was done based off our own software that was internal decision. And here's the question, why we moved to the public? We had difficulties from the beginning at this stage. From the development and DevOps perspective, the worst were like scalability limitations, that the cloud is not your business, and the scale out and feature development is very expensive. And there are many major solutions in the market like this from AWS or from the Google Cloud. Also, optimizing the utilization of available resources was also a challenge. We had many times underutilization because we were not able to precisely define our need in specific time. Uh, Also, issues with some specific configuration that normally were easily available to achieve on the products on the market. It's like, for example, using Kubernetes with that in that modern way. Also, limited community because this is so it can cause so-called knowledge silos. So because it's internal product, so of course there is no community outside. One thought from me personally, maybe not that important, but worth to be mentioned, is that it does not give you that fun learning the tools that are widely used on the market, like AWS or Google Cloud. So also learning these external tools available widely also build the developer or DevOps market value. And also our project was constantly growing. So we had the demand to grow as well. And it was pretty difficult to find someone already experienced with our internal product on the market. So every new team member had to simply start learning from scratch that tool. Yeah, of course, there was also some pros as well of being in this private cloud, like excellent network performance. Private cloud usually is deployed inside of companies' intranet, where the network is the most efficient. So at this stage, we haven't faced any more significant issues with the network. Also, the requirements of compliant rules that were very easy to be achieved. Uh, in some cases, looks like the private cloud seems to be more secure because the data are isolated. But if it is open usually for the internet, it's not that black or white. Also, because the platform was from us, so we had access for even very low detailed logs that we were able really to investigate any issue. Also, developers didn't have to care about that cost of infrastructure because that was pretty established and not changing in time so much. And at the end, of course, no vendor locking because the software was developed by the team somewhere inside of Bosch. And at the end, maybe full control of the data, information, user assets because of this possible data isolation. Yeah, but to address this private cloud drawbacks, we introduced the public cloud. At Bosch, we allowed to use all public cloud providers. In our case, we onboarded AWS and then we started working on entire migration. And it happened. So we are in the moment when we had both clouds. So everything was doubled. Pipelines, deployments, infrastructure, monitoring, tracking, all was doubled. Also costs. So maybe important question, what was the concept in our case of working in hybrid cloud? That was really difficult from the beginning. The concept was so-called on-transit data. The Bosch ambition is to manage all the data. Therefore, we had to synchronize important data from the private cloud to from the public to the private cloud. It meant huge data flow between the corporate network and the public cloud, security challenges, and a lot of discussions. So let me summarize it. The darker side of being in this setup was like some technical topics like issue with data streaming, error tracing, because that was a nightmare. Of course, we had some kind of common trace ID, on each request, but nevertheless, still investigating of problems was like searching the logs and what happened in both different systems. So we do not remember it as good time. Migration to AWS also in our case coincided with migration to new Jenkins. And to have the Jenkins migration smooth to our customers, we kept both Jenkins working. So there was a situation like it was really confusing which job in Jenkins is doing what, and on the public cloud, which is on private cloud. Uh, so this duplication, it was really not clear to us what is going on in this migration of systems. DevOps setup of Jenkins agent on private cloud, for example, took usually like 3 to 5 days, comparing to the same action on the public cloud that was like 3 to 5 minutes. So like days to minutes, significant different. And in this setup, we faced new kind of issues that we hadn't had so far. For example, some requests didn't reach the web service, but the client got an error message. And it was caused because of the really long chain of the services. Like the client was sending a request, then was like proxy, gateway, another gateway, XIO proxy, and other stuff like that. So we had a situation where it was very difficult to understand when and why specific request was not lost but stuffed somewhere. Yes, and so, well, this on-transit data concept did not work to us in practice. By the end, we went to production, fortunately. For us, there was no other way than go ahead to public. So the decision was pretty easy. But here maybe important question, another one. Is hybrid cloud solution so bad? It is not. In our case, it didn't work mainly because this concept on transit data was too complicated idea, and we were not too satisfied with that. So the other question is, does the hybrid cloud have best of both worlds? In general, hybrid cloud is a mix of private and public clouds. So it can bring benefits from both clouds. And what it can be, so it's like better protection sensitive data, because this data can be moved to the private cloud. Easier meet localization law and data privacy. Many countries have the data localization law, that requires organization to keep customers' data in the same country where it was collected. Also, meet high expected load. For example, when the by default application is working on the private, and in case of higher load peak, additional instances starts on the second cloud. Similar story with the disaster recovery strategy. When one goes down, another one start up to handle the traffic. Also, increased agility and innovation. This is the reason why startups love public cloud so much. The ability to respond quickly on the market needs, develop required solution with the really lowest possible entry investment, and stay ahead of the competitors. So when we started the process of migration to public cloud, we didn't have too much internal regulation, except that we have to be so-called cloud agnostic, which means we should make setup that relatively easy, migratable to another public cloud or back to the private cloud just in case. And here, some like important points about maybe vendor locking. So it was, for example, the reason why we set up our own Elasticsearch, our own Grafana, not managed, and also Kubernetes with Istio. All of them not managed by AWS. Of course, there were several other services, but let's say less important here. backup, we had to also pay attention to backups because these default in RBS format could not be restored outside of the AWS because they were specific to AWS. So we also decided to use standard format of backups. When talking about being cloud agnostic, let's say whatever possible as a code is crucial to us. We have everything that's possible in code. We use Terraform scripts instead of CloudFormation from AWS. It does not mean that migration to other cloud is possible in magical way, but it is a matter of adjusting Terraform scripts. So theoretically, we are able to move to another cloud within a few months. And of course, vendor locking must have exceptions here. And in our case, it's like using S3 bucket. It is because according to our own researches, S3 is best on the market. So it makes no sense to use something else. Similar case is for DynamoDB. Uh, we use it also for several services that are not that crucial and does not require relation database. Lambda is brilliant tool that is also definitely AWS standard. For instance, why use Lambda and all this stuff above? Instead of set up new Spring Web Service to manage data, for example, on shared folder, let's be it an S3 bucket. S3 bucket can be used together with Lambda, and then difference is that Spring Web Service that contains that we have on the one side the Spring Web Service that has like a bunch of files with really deep structure, comparing to, let's say, few files of code in Lambda that is doing exactly the same. So we use AWS specific tools usually when it can speed up process of delivering solution that are not that critical part of our entire ecosystem. GDPR, very valid point that we had to take care, but in our case, the only thing that I remember you had to pay attention is that we could not store personal data on S3 bucket because this is actually available everywhere. So, and after this migration, when we were already in the public cloud, what has changed? So this what I remember is that every team member became responsible for the cost of the infrastructure because now we have this so-called pay-as-you-go model. So every person needs to understand what are the costs, how it should be calculated to be able to predict. Other less time for spending for resources in public cloud, IT resources and services are available immediately. Also, huge community available in internet shares knowledge and experience. So plus, of course, a lot of detailed documentation here. It prevents creation of these so-called knowledge silos. Also easier to hire new team member who is already experienced with that cloud because AWS, like in our case, is widely and well known on the market. In case of complicated project requirements, there is also good availability of AWS architects that can advise you how to do that something according to best rules. And from the developer perspective, it is pure fun to learn and work with public clouds that are known on the market. So maybe last question here. Is public cloud so perfect solution? The answer is it really depends. We were investigating and checking this and also collecting our own experience, and we saw that it when it comes to choosing the different cloud types, knowing the use case for each cloud is really crucial. The best way to make decision which cloud solution which infrastructure type is right for your project is to define your exact needs, initial budget, regular budget, because the initial budget in case of private cloud is really high, in public cloud is very low, and regular budget that you have to spend, let's say monthly or yearly to maintain it, and also priorities, your priorities. And then knowing the pros and cons of each cloud solution. So this is what I shared with you in the previous slides. And here, probably small companies and startup will go with public cloud, while bigger companies probably and enterprises will go with private or hybrid clouds. But it's not only about the, let's say, the size of business. It also depends on the vertical of business. So look, when it's about providing software as a service, as public cloud will be perfect choice. When their business is about dealing with sensitive data or government or highly regulated domains like healthcare or requirements that is really high network performance, then probably private cloud will be best choice. And hybrid cloud, always when you need to find balance between all those use cases together that I mentioned just a minute ago. Actually, that's the end of the presentation. We came to the end of the presentation. I hope you heard something interesting that maybe inspired you. So from my side, I would like to just tell you, thank you very much for your attention.